Hello and welcome to the League of Chiropractic Women's monthly webinar series where we feature different women in our profession who are here to connect with you, empower you, and help you thrive in all aspects of your life and practice. I'm Dr. Cathy Wendland Colby, and it's my privilege to be hosting our special guest today, who is a 1995 graduate of Life University, Dr. Pam Jarboe.
Hi, Cathy.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for being here with us.
So glad to be.
Now, Pam, you were one of the founding members of the LCW, and you were on the board for many, many years, and you helped to create our mission statement, which is that the mission of the League of Chiropractic Women is to inspire and support women in chiropractic to thrive while advancing the principles and practice of chiropractic. We commit to serve the vitalistic principles of chiropractic as a subluxation-focused and drugless profession. Thank you so much for your work on that, because that speaks volumes to me, to so many women, obviously to all of our members, but really to the profession.
It was an amazing meeting. I remember when we came together and decided on the wording of that. There's a lot of thought goes into a mission statement, and I always found it guided me. I was on the board for 5 years, and often when we were thinking about certain projects, I would read the mission statement, and it was a great guide.
It really does, because it for me, it brings me back and reminds me. It's kind of like, we talk about slipping and checking. It brings me back and reminds me when the world helps me slip to check myself and make sure that I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing for the right reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So listen, we're here to have some fun today because we just wrapped up the holiday season all across the world. And it's a time of year when most people are kind of going, they're going crazy. And you are here to talk to us today about some extreme self-care.
Yes, I was excited to have this topic because you and I were talking a little bit about some of the women that we take care of in the practice, and also just ourselves. We devote ourselves to making sure that everybody has the most fantastic, holiday season. And sometimes we arrive at the end getting symptoms, right? A lot of people I know get symptoms, or just feel really kind of bitter and angry and, not happy with their family. And, I call it the exploding doormat syndrome. And, where like the person just was like, okay, trying to be nice until all of a sudden they couldn't anymore. So I just thought it'd be neat, all year long for us to think about extreme self-care, because so much comes from us. I see as women, that is something that's unique, where so much energy comes from us, so much direction for our family, for our partners, for our business, for our team, for our patients. So much comes from us. And it's important that we remember that energy needs to come to us as well as through us in order for that to be sustainable. Makes sense, right?
It makes a lot of sense. And I think that we all get so lost in that season of just give, serve, love. And, if we follow some of our beliefs, it's with no expectation of return, but then all of a sudden you find yourself out of balance.
Right. And I think that can happen any time of the year. So, if you look at nature, a flower receives sunlight, and it receives rain, it receives nutrients from the ground, and then it gives its beauty and its radiance. And so nature understands the law of giving and receiving. And so we have to remember, we're not immune to the laws of nature. We can't always be just giving and giving and giving. It's important that we receive so that more can come through us and from us. And yeah.
There's that saying, you got to put your oxygen mask on first.
Yes, right. I know.
And I think as women, we forget that so often, because we put everything and everybody else first, and we try to make everybody better, and we try to help everybody that we can. But the reality is, and I know I've said it to my patients, I don't always remember to live by it. If you get sick, who's going to take care of you?
Right.
And you have to take care of yourself.
Right. So I think the first part of the whole process is perception, what we're talking about, wow, this is important. And so some years of my life, I was like, right, that's really important. And then the year would just get going and I would fall right back into the same thing. And for me, I've decided that this might be my thing that I'm going to learn and get better and better at every single year, but it might always be a thing that I just have to keep modulating and checking myself about, because it's something I easily fall into. And so I actually wanted to offer some really practical things that I think about, and you know, I invite you to jump in and share the things that you think about in order to do this. Because there's places where I still feel like I'm not great at self-care, but then there's other places where I feel like, wow, I've gotten amazing at it. So one of the first things I was going to share was time blocking. Because a lot of times, right, patients or, you know, clients of mine will say like, I just don't have time. And so what I started doing was, just like when in my office, I always say to patients, you are going to have a much better chance of staying on your care plan if you book it out. So I look at some of my ways that I have other people take care of me, like acupuncture, Reiki, my own adjustments, massage, and I pre-book it for the whole quarter or for the year. And so depending on the practitioner. And so then I block it in my time blocker so that I know this is a ritual. This is something I consider sacred. And, you know, when I travel, I might miss an appointment here or there, but I'm so much better. Whereas in the past, because I didn't have an appointment, I would fall off the wagon. And then I'd realize like 4 months later, like, oh my gosh, like I haven't taken care of myself. So I love time blocking. And I also love the art of learning to ask for what I want. And I think that's something that was really hard for me personally for a long time. So I would feel like, oh my gosh, like that person just acted like this, or they didn't do that, or they did this thing and I wasn't expecting that. But then when I really did an autopsy, like, well, I didn't really ask for what I want. I just expected unconsciously for somebody to behave a certain way, but I never told them the rules that I had made up in my head. And so that's one of the arts that I think about, like in the week. What is it that I specifically am looking for? So if I'm thinking about the energy coming towards me, then I need to be able to ask. And one of the things I think about was like, you know, let's say it was people who worked for me at the time. I tended to be like, oh, like, how am I going to help them this week? Like, I wasn't thinking about, this is what I need from you. And I really needed to learn to ask for that, not to mention, this is what I need from you for the children, or from my husband, or from anyone, you know, around, because I am a giver naturally. I know I'm going to give to people in my life. I need to make sure that I learn the skill of asking. Some people need to learn the skill of asking, how can I help you? There are certain people that need to learn that skill. That wasn't the skill that I needed to learn. So yeah, so then another one, I was going to say that I also have a handout for people. If they want it, they can go to my website and they can get the handout. It'll be at cairobloom.com/self-care. Just all one word, no hyphens. And so I'm going to give you some resources, some links to books that I found really helpful, or websites that are great. And so other things that I personally need quiet time. I was mentioning to you, I'm like an introvert, which people are surprised at because I have an extroverted life. Like I'm always around people. But like recently in the fall, I went through a lot of change and it was kind of intense. I had two staff people had their babies. So I'm like, you know, a grand auntie. And I love the babies, and we're trying to figure out new ways of having the women in the office, but it just got weird because I really needed a lot of help. I need more help because I was going through this growth and I actually had less help. And so it was, there was many challenges happening, but that was one of the big ones. And I found that at the end of the day, I needed quiet. And so that's one of my big needs, is for quiet. And I don't have it because I'm always talking to people, you know, in my coaching calls, or I'm, you know, talking in the practice, or I'm teaching. And so I really need quiet. And so I would make it so that my calendar ended at 7:30 at night. And I just had do not disturb time, where I just go for like 2 hours and I read, or I meditate, or I look at trees. I find that really relaxing. It's weird, but it's true. So anyway, you know, I think quiet time can be really important, or time in nature is super rejuvenating. Like I actually have to block it off. Although I don't want time in nature today because we're getting 15 inches of snow, and in the background, you can just see the trees are whipping. They say that it's going to be like 45 miles an hour winds, and they're calling it a snow cyclone. So as I was telling you, I wanted to take care of myself because I don't like snow very much. So I went out and bought a special outfit. I've been wearing pink all day. I bought pink pajamas.
You have to show us.
I know, I don't think I can show you, can I? Okay, I'll show you.
Show.
Very cute. They're so cute. They're from Life is Good. And look, aren't they so fun?
So see, from here up it's business, and from here down
right?
it's casual.
Well, I went and changed so that I could have my fancy lady outfit. Not really fancy, but it was so funny. I live in Boyland, you know, and so I came home yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to be the cutest person in the cyclone tomorrow. And so anyway, I was all excited about my cyclone pajamas.
So I will have to admit that while we're not having a cyclone, because this is Hotlanta, it is below, you know, normal temperature here. So it's like in the teens. So yeah. I'm kind of joining you. I got my sweatpants. I got my fuzzy slippers.
Look at those cute little slippies, right?
I got them for Christmas. So, you know, you got to wear them.
They're so cute.
Listen,
you're the cutest house in the Atlanta freeze. You're the cutest person in the house for your Atlanta freeze down.
I wouldn't push it that far, but I'm trying.
Well, you have a little bit of competition with that little sweetie of yours. I mean, she's pretty darn cute.
Oh my goodness, she is a stinker. But you know what? That's part of self-care.
It is.
And I'm so glad we're having this talk, because when my mind thinks of self-care, all I think is, oh yeah, go to the gym and take care of yourself, right? I don't think about that I have to block in some time for my massages, or block in some time for my meditation, or just some me time, some tree time.
Yeah, tree time is really important to me. I know it sounds weird, but like I think and feel my physiology changes if I can just tap into that. I put meditation there too. It's really important to me. And I wanted to share a little tip, because like some of my clients will get like really like rigid because, you know, their male coaches have said to them, like, you need to have a morning routine, and they can't, right? Because the babies are on top of them and the animals. Like when I go to sleep, it's amazing. I'm like, there's 4 animals and 47 kids and my husband, and, you know, I'm sleeping in the tiniest corner of the bed, and I'm kidding, but it's kind of like that. And you know, so if I got up in the morning, everybody got up with me. And so I always found that, you know, I felt stressed. I'd be laying there awake and felt stressed. I got a set of headphones and I put my morning routine into my phone. So I created a Pinterest board that had all my affirmations and prayers, and it was a private board. I also have a private board that has pictures of elephants on it. They relax me. And so I went ahead and set up a Pinterest board with all the affirmations so I could go through my affirmations in the morning, and I had my meditations on my playlist. And so that made it easy for me to have my morning routine. I also had my reminders or my goal setting. I use Asana software. I love that. So I could go over my goals. I could go through my checklist of what I was going to do in the day. I could read my affirmations and do my meditation, all while I was like smothered with all the love of my family. And so yeah. And another trick I thought I might share is that what I found is I always had good intentions. You know, it's January and it's like, oh, I'm going to do everything right? Like we have a list that's, you know, right. And I did, and it would, but then something would happen, right? Like there was a loss in my family, or, you know, and I got derailed by stuff. And so what I noticed that helped me a lot was if I put a quarterly reminder that just said self-care, and I did it, you know, once a quarter, so then I could look at, was I really putting it into my calendar, or, you know, had I already gotten derailed? And so I like that as a chance. And then I do something once a year that I like to take myself on a Pam venture. That's what I call it. And I do something by myself. And that's hard. In the something by myself, it used to be, like I remember talking to my client about this possibility of like her just spending time with herself. And she said, well, like her big success was that she went out for a muffin and tea. And she was like, and it was just like such a great feeling. And I had like 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, the bar is so low. You know what I mean? But this is what it gets like, right? Sometimes this is.
Sometimes it's grocery shopping, right? Like that's a vacation when you have little ones.
Or the bathroom becomes a vacation. I gotta go. I gotta go all day. Yeah, I'm not hiding there. So I used to go grocery.
Why is the door locked? Why did you shut the door? Yeah.
Exactly. Why do you need it locked? Because of you on the other side. But I would go to the grocery store and I would listen to comedy shows, because so I'd have headphones on while I'm grocery shopping. I felt like I was a very not as extremely effective grocery shopper as I could have been, but I would be laughing the whole way through and just having a grand old time and got funny looks from people. But that was like a great time. So it can be like a vacation. But the Pam venture that I was going to tell you about, like, it can be a small thing or it could be a big thing, like, going for a week-long retreat. Like one year I went to this Colorado yoga retreat center, and I had a cabin by myself, and every day I had a routine. You get up early in the morning and you go to meditation and yoga, and you have breakfast and go for a hike, and then you have a nap, and then you do a class, and then you have a yoga class at the end of the day. And it was just a great routine, and I had a lot of, great reflective time to write and be, and it was really great. And then like another Pam venture was in Italy. And so, it can be anything. And so I think it's important that we remember that we're people, because a lot of times we're living from our role as being a spouse, a mom, a chiropractor spouse, a CA, a student. We're living from the role of what it means to be a good daughter, a good whatever. But we're not really living from our soul, like from that place that at some point we were just Cathy, we were just Pam. And so it's important, I think, to reconnect to that source of just being who you are, not living in the role that you're serving in the moment. And so I needed that time once a year to just, replenish that connection. That was important to me. And so that was a way that I had of self-care. Then I think there's like one other level of self-care that can be really important, which is just like having boundaries in your life about or standards. I'll just say like an example. We're really funny. We don't answer the phone automatically just because it rings. So my son was like 4 years old, and my older son, I always am so aware when I'm around him. But what I became aware was that I used to rush to answer the phone. Like the phone would ring and I would just like rush to get it. And he was just this like quiet, centered person. And he would just find that really odd. Like we were doing a puzzle though. So it wasn't his world that we needed to rush around for someone else's urgency. His world was that, right? We were having a moment. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's so fair. It's such a fair perspective. Like I didn't need to answer that call based on someone else's urgency. And I read in Cheryl Richardson's book, she has a book called Extreme Self-Care. And she was saying like, she doesn't answer the phone. You can train people in your life. Like I answer the phone between 2 and 4. I answer my emails once a week on Thursday, so that you're not always responding to everybody else's urgency. And that is a really big challenge for me personally, because I love to help. And so I tend to respond to that like, I need your help. And instead of responding to, I need to replenish my own chi so that I actually have the best thing to give when it's time to give. So I keep trying to find ways of maintaining my own centeredness. Like, I'm not going to rush, because I had years of rushing all the time. And I realized like, then I would be like, not breathing, and, my heart rate would go up, or I would feel super stressed. And I decided like, okay, well, what would happen if I didn't rush? What if I was Jamaican? What would happen? Because I'm like 5 minutes late, it'd be all good. Like I would just get there. And so sometimes like even today, it didn't work for me to, download the Zoom, connection or whatever. And my computer was not cooperating. And I was like, it's okay. And you'd even texted me, it's okay. So I decided like, I'm not going to sacrifice my physiology for this moment, And so
that's great.
Yeah, it's an important thing. We sacrifice our physiology a lot of times for external approval, right? And like making other people feel comfortable, but then we're not comfortable. And that is a really important thing, I think, to remember. So
I want to kind of talk to you about that one for a minute, because I noticed somewhere along the line that every time I was trying to get out the door with my children, Anthony and Alessia, they're still young, but I was always like, come on, hurry, let's go. We got to rush. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, why is everything that we do, I'm always rushing them? And it's because, I take 24 hours and I try to cram 48 hours worth of stuff into it. Exactly. But is that fair to them? Because have I taught them this internal, we got to rush all the time?
I'm glad you said that. I used to have the same thing in the mornings, and I bet so many of our listeners have that too. And so my cat might come into the video. I don't know if you can see, but this is what life is like. She hears me talking. I'm on purpose with Christopher Kent and Patrick Tempo, and she'll come and just be like right next to my head. And I'm wrestling with her behind the scenes, but anyway. I used to have that thing where in the morning, I was gearing up, and so I read some other book because I'm like a maniac about books, as you know, but I think it might have been The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families. I really loved that book. But what they talked about was, oh no, it was redirecting children's behavior. But this book talked about letting a child experience a natural consequence. So I was stressed at that time because I felt like they needed to get their stuff together and be where they were supposed to be at a certain time. And so I even with my youngest son, this happened probably when he was 8 or so. We sat down and I said, well, what do you expect of yourself? What do you think about your morning? I never included him in the whole process,
Right.
right? I just had all the energy running. So in my head, that's the cat. So we're having this silent little like samurai. Anyway, I would, I sat down with him. I said, what do you expect? And so we ended up talking it out. And so we made an agreement. Like children are actually really easy to make agreements with. They see things so clearly. And he said, well, I would like it if we left at 7:40. And I tend to run late a lot because of what you're talking about, where I'm like, I got 47 things to juggle. And so I was like, okay, I'll make a commitment. So easy for me to make a commitment to my child who's like all like, the eyes are as big as his face and he's pure as light. And he's like, yeah, I'd like to leave at 7:40. And I was like, I can make that happen. And sure enough, like 7:41, 7:42, I was not ready. And he was like looking at me, you're breaking the agreement. And I was like, I know, I really apologize. I'm going to do better. And then that was it. I might have done it twice and then I never did it again. But for some people, it's the child that's breaking the agreement, but you're just ongoingly having a conversation about why that happened until it doesn't happen anymore. Because there might be structural things that need to change in order for the agreement to work. It's not automatic. Most people think like, oh, this didn't happen because you wanted to diss me. But a lot of times it didn't happen just because like, well, we weren't on the same page, or I just needed some tools in order to get there.
Right. And I've experienced that because anyone who knows me knows that I am not an on-time person, right? And I joke about that I'm punctually handicapped. I don't do anything on time. I am always late. I was 30 minutes late for my own wedding, and I will be late for my own funeral. So just make note, if they wheel me in early, there's a problem. But
it's not really you.
Yeah, it was not in my plan. I've already written it down. I better come in late. I want everybody to laugh. But I actually had a woman at a meeting one time say to me, how could you think so little of my time?
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
And I thought there was 2 ways that my brain could go. Who are you to be so selfish to think this was about you? Right? Or who am I to be so selfish to think it was about me?
Right.
And so in that moment, I had to say to her, you know what, honestly, I apologize. I was not thinking about you at all. Right. I'm just on my own clock. Right. I drive my own truck wherever I go. I get there when I get there. I leave when I want to leave because I'm responsible for my own time. Right. But I saw how it bothered her.
Right. Or it affected
her sake. It was affecting her. She felt like, they held up a meeting waiting for me. And in my mind, they weren't even ready when I walked in. So I was right on time, but I didn't realize that in the meantime, they were holding up the meeting waiting on me.
Right.
So when you realize that, like you said, you realize it from their perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the other person's perspective, you're not keeping an agreement. And then so then, but to me, there's what's happening and then there's what we make it mean. And that's true about pretty much everything all day long. So what's happening is you're kind of, cavalier about your time, or you're in your own world about your time, not aware of like the influential thing. And if you could just talk to people about that beforehand and make an agreement, like, here's how I do things. And if they would accept it and like, be like, is that okay with you? I just want you to know, or how do we work together? Because I just know myself. That, to me, that what you just offered is a huge learning for anybody who's listening, because we all have stuff about who we are. And if we could just communicate to people, like, I show up like this, and I just, you might interpret it as a million different things, but I'm just telling you, this is what it is.
Right.
So it's important to separate what it is and how what you'll make it mean. But I'm just saying, this is what it is for me. And, how can we work together? Great. Let's just get to know each other. How does that land with you? I have a sister who's always late for everything. And a lot of people like make it like, you have no respect for me and my time. And, I can see a perspective, right? Because like, if other people are time blocking, they only had this amount of time. But also with her, if she's late and I'm going to leave early, then we just don't have as much time together. I'm like, I'm totally cool with it. I love you. You know, I'm going to lick her in the face and get on my way. I don't have to suffer about it.
Right, right.
But the cat ate the rest of my notes. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought the dog ate your homework.
Exactly. The cat knocked my notes on the ground, but I think we offered a lot of great stuff for people.
I think we did, but I have one question that I have to ask you.
Yes.
Who's behind you?
That's my conscience. Another one of my sisters gave me a bobblehead. Okay, first I have to tell you the whole story, and I'm like, I hope it'll be funny. But my sister is gay, and so she announced that she was getting married, and I was like, oh my gosh, congratulations, that's so awesome. And she's like, yes, and so we'd like you to be in the wedding. We're going to have every single member of our wedding party wear a different color of the rainbow. And I was like, oh my God, that is so gay. And she started laughing, and she goes, and we want you to wear orange. And I was like, oh my God, and you're mad at me. Like, I hate orange. So anyway, this was a gift. It's a bobblehead. And I just think my butt looks awesome in it. Oh yeah.
I like your butt.
So anyway, yeah, it's the funniest thing ever. I have my conscience on my shoulder.
I love it. And she literally is. She's right there.
He's right there. Most of the time I try to stand strategically. See, like that's the spot I should be in, because then my kids are right over my shoulder. But yeah, if we just tilted slightly, then you could have Buddha over my shoulder.
You got both now.
And
the elephants.
The elephants and the snowstorm outside. Anyway, yeah, it's always so good to talk to you.
Listen, I love that your space is a space that's set up for you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're talking about extreme self-care, and just looking around your space, you have what you need. And even if, you know, for me, even if the books are behind you, you may never even have to open it. It's almost like the knowledge is just there waiting down on your shoulders and kind of keeping you in check. And that's, you know, for me, I have the green books in my office.
Yeah,
at my chiropractic office, right?
Yeah.
Because they're there kind of as a reminder that as I'm sitting down to do a report of findings,
yeah,
they're watching me, right? And so I love that your space is set up specifically for you to do what you need to do.
Many of my mentors are behind me, like my chiropractic mentors, my spiritual mentors, my emotional mentors. It's like all of this has brought me to where I am. It's lovely. I love it. Yeah, thanks.
I know I took a full page of notes today.
Oh.
So, and I will be applying a lot of this and, you know, going back to it. So ladies, I hope you took some notes as well. Pam, thank you so much for sharing. You're always such a blessing to anyone that you talk to, especially to me. You're such a great friend, a great mentor, and a tremendous leader. I'm just so honored to have you as a friend.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you for your most recent acknowledgement in TCL Online. That was awesome.
It's really lovely to receive, and thank you. And you know, you have a tremendous influence in my life. I think we've talked about it several times. You make me much braver and much more courageous to step out, and that's not something that I'm great at. So I thank you, and I feel like our friendship is a blessing, and I appreciate you tremendously.
Thank you so much. The feeling is completely mutual. So ladies, these are the kind of leaders that we have here at the League of Chiropractic Women. So if you're not yet a member, we invite you to join us by going to lcwomen.com and check out our website. Find out about the events that we do. We have chapter meetings all over the world. We'll be in Atlanta in May for the big event at the Rubicon. So that information will be linked below. And we'll also be back in Arizona for our Spiz and Spa the first weekend in November. So look for that information. Check us out on Facebook at League of Chiropractic Women. And if you're a member and you're not part of the LCW Coffee House, make sure you send a request and we'll get you added in there. So signing off from the League of Chiropractic Women. Thank you so much, Pam Jarboe, for joining us today. And thank you to all of you. Thanks, Pam. We'll see you next time.
Bye.